All right, good evening. Welcome everyone to this public meeting for the Crossing subdivision. My name is Maddie Lehman. I'm with the City of Goshen Stormwater Department, and I'm just moderating here tonight. I'll introduce our speakers here in a moment. Tonight, here's our agenda for tonight. We're gonna do some introductions quick, and then we have a number of topics to get through: current stormwater management, the post-construction stormwater management plan, that legal maintenance agreement, an upcoming drainage project that we are excited about. A upcoming drainage project we're excited about, and then some opportunities for homeowners association, and then a Q&A at the end. So that first part, we're hoping to keep to around an hour, and then there'll be 15 to 20 minutes for questions at the end. So just some Zoom housekeeping. Again, we're gonna be taking questions at the end. We're trying to leave plenty of time for that. So you should be able to get your question heard. I'll have these instructions again at the end for clicking raise hand. You can also, this meeting is being recorded, so if you're uncomfortable, don't want your voice heard, or don't want to ask your question that way, please feel free to drop a question in the chat box, and we'll be sure to address it at the end. And you can do that throughout the presentation. We'll be tracking those. So tonight on this call from the city, we will hear from Jason Kaufman, who's the stormwater coordinator. He's tackling kind of those first two agenda items. We'll also be hearing from the city from Becky Hutzel. She's with the redevelopment, and she will kind of be addressing the upcoming drainage project. And then also on the call, we have Dustin Saylor, Director of Public Works, myself, and Taylor Hetler, our development liaison, who's sort of running Zoom for us. And then you'll also be hearing tonight from Brad Mossness. He's with Avon Marsh Consultants. He will be talking us through the upcoming drainage project. And then also with Tom DeMeester from Brock Group. He is sort of the point person developing a large chunk of the rest of the Crossing neighborhood. And with that, I will go ahead and turn this over to Jason.
Thank you, Maddie. Good evening, everyone. Appreciate you taking the time to join us this evening to go through these different aspects of your neighborhood and the future project that we are excited to have coming. So first here, we wanted to talk about the state of the stormwater infrastructure in the Crossing as it is right now. And what you can see here in the previous slide were just some pictures of unfinished components of the stormwater infrastructure, because the initial project was developed in the phase one, and then other phases have not yet been completed. Going to the next slide, it shows an overall aerial of the portion of the Crossing that is already developed. And what we wanted to show here with this map is just the infrastructure that's there, the different types of stormwater infrastructure. For the Crossing, there are stormwater basins. You can see those on the right-hand side, and then also at the top, and at the entrance. And then there are some swales that drain stormwater from backyards to these basins. And then there are storm structures and storm pipes, and we'll get into those more as we talk. So on the next slide, we are looking at looking at unmaintained storm drains and pipes. So as this development has existed, the city accepted the water lines and the sanitary sewer lines, but did not accept the storm sewer because it has not yet met our requirements, the city's requirements. And so these structures have not been maintained as much by the city. So there are some issues with the infrastructure that's there, whether they have trees growing out of the back, or have sediment in the structures. So again, here is a slide showing the infrastructure, and the infrastructure that's highlighted in red, the storm drains, the storm structures, and the pipes are what would be accepted by the city once the requirements that the city has for drainage are met. And then the areas in blue, the swales and the basins, are the responsibility of the property owners. Some of the issues that have existed with the stormwater infrastructure at the crossing, the retention basins that were constructed at the very beginning, they are holding water where they should not be. And so you can see here two different pictures from 2 different years, 2013 and 2021. And both times these basins have been holding water. And that is something that is a concern, because these basins are designed to hold a certain amount of runoff and then to drain dry within 36 hours. And that is something that has not happened, and something that we are hoping to, or that we are planning to address in the project we'll be talking about tonight. Also, these basins are not being maintained because woody vegetation is being allowed to grow in them, and because of the water, there are cattails and other plants that are growing there, which makes it more difficult to maintain. So typically these basins are to have woody material removed and to be mowed, and that has not been the case. And this, in case of this picture, you probably pass it every time you enter and exit your neighborhood. This is the basin that's right on the south side of the entrance. So back to this map again, showing the different infrastructure and where it's at. The basins again, as well as the swales, are the responsibility of the property owners, and the storm infrastructure, the structures and the pipes will become the city's responsibility once they meet the requirements. Some of the issues that are also existing out there, the swales are not being maintained. In some cases, there are trash that is being dumped back there. In this picture, you see a mattress, as well as some drainage pipe that has accumulated in the swale. And other places, it's woody vegetation that has accumulated along with trash. And those are things that would be maintained by the property owner. Another issue that we have is with the drainage swale on the south side of the development. There is a berm there as well, and that berm was not installed correctly. It was installed in where the swale should have been, and this has caused some impediment to development, but also development impeding drainage. So in some cases, some of the homes have filled in the swale because of how the swale did not go directly east to west. You can see in this picture here, the line is a little bit at an angle. And so that it doesn't look like much from this aerial, but when you're out there, it does shift about 20 feet, and that can create some problems. And some of you may be aware of this as it resides in your backyard. So maintenance, and whose responsibility is it? So the crossing has, as well as many other neighborhoods and construction projects throughout the city, have what is called a post-construction stormwater management plan, or PCSMP, which is the acronym that we have there on number 3. A post-construction stormwater management plan details how the property owner will maintain the stormwater measures that have been installed for post-construction control of stormwater runoff. So how do we get to this point? Why are we here? And so back in 1970, the Clean Water Act was passed, and it was to create and manage pollutants that were going into our waterways. And so from that point source pollution, which is what they were focusing on at that point, they cleaned up those issues, and our waterways became cleaner, but they were not clean. They did not meet the requirements or the standards that the Clean Water Act had set. So in 1999, through the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, phase 2 of that program, the NPDES program, it created the Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System, or it identified communities as Municipal Separate Storm Sewer Systems, or MS4s, which is what Goshen is. We are an MS4. And so we are required to meet certain requirements. And IDEM, the Indiana Department of Environmental Management, created these or adopted these requirements based off of what the federal government and the Environmental Protection Agency required, which led to, in 2005 and 2006, the Goshen Stormwater Department being created and certain ordinances being adopted, which allows for the city to meet our MS4 requirements through the state. And one of those requirements is the post-construction program, which is what leads to these post-construction stormwater management plans. So here are some selections from the post-construction city ordinance. Section 3 is, sorry. So section 3 deals with, says, maintain any and all stormwater measures and practices identified in the construction plan that were intended to remain in place after construction activities have been completed. What this is saying is that it's pointing towards the measures that are managing stormwater runoff from our homes, from our roadways, and then also the quality. How is it treating pollutants that stormwater runoff may pick up as it runs across hard surface areas? And stormwater runoff is water that comes from rain or snow melt that runs across hard surfaces like roofs, sidewalks, driveways, and roadways. And as that stormwater runoff goes across those hard surfaces, it picks up pollutants. And so the post-construction measures are how are those pollutants being controlled? How are they being removed from stormwater runoff or prevented from getting picked up by stormwater runoff? So section 4 and section 5 are a little bit similar. It talks about the creation of an enforceable maintenance agreement, which describes who is responsible for maintaining these post-construction stormwater measures, and then also how the maintenance will be funded. Section 5 goes a little bit further and adds the requirement for property owners to inspect those post-construction stormwater measures. And we'll get into that here in a little bit. So as part of the post-construction stormwater management plan, there is a legal maintenance agreement, which says who is going to maintain, identifies who's going to maintain these post-construction measures and how that's going to happen. So, and the essential requirements from that are maintenance, inspections, corrective actions, and then notification upon the sale of a property. So in maintenance, it describes, if you had a chance to look at the post-construction plan and you came across the maintenance agreement, there is a section that is called real estate owners' responsibilities. And in that portion of the agreement, it describes the different responsibilities that property owners have for maintenance. For example, maintaining those measures that are located on or used for the benefit of the real estate, of the owner's real estate. So if you live on the south side of the neighborhood of the subdivision, you may have a swale in your backyard, and it's your responsibility to maintain that portion of the swale. Or if you live where there's a retention basin, then it's your responsibility to maintain that. However, there is some provisions in this agreement that allow for everybody to be a part of that maintenance. Another example is maintenance of all erosion sediment control measures that are on your site. If you are doing some activities that disturb the ground, then making sure that you're managing those bare areas and getting those areas stabilized. Corrective actions, I'm sorry, skipped inspections. Inspections, property owners in the crossing are required to conduct an annual inspection of all the post-construction measures, and then every 5 years have a third party come in and do an inspection. And those inspections will tell you what is functioning correctly and what is not functioning correctly, and which leads into corrective actions. Once those reports are created, the subdivision, the property owners have 60 days to complete those repairs of any system that's broken or damaged. And if property owners do not feel that repairs are necessary, then they are given an opportunity to appeal that within 20 days of that report being issued. And that can be done to the Stormwater Board, the Goshen Stormwater Board. If no appeal is made and the corrective actions are not taken within those 60 days, then the city is authorized to make those repairs and assess the cost to all property owners. And there's a process to that, and we'll talk a little bit more about that here in a little bit. Lastly, the sale of property notification. Upon the sale of a property, it is the responsibility of the seller to notify in writing to the purchaser that, or to advise them that there is a stormwater maintenance agreement, and to let them know that exists so that they're aware of the requirements they are buying into. So what features are maintained? So maintenance, inspection, and corrective actions for the different post-construction measures. So again, we're going to look at the red and blue. The blue measures are the responsibility of the property owners, the swales and the retention basins. And again, what the red areas, the storm structures and the pipes, once they meet the requirements of the city and the city accepts those and takes over the maintenance, the city will maintain those structures by cleaning them out, vacuuming them out with our Vactor trucks, removing any sediment that has accumulated in the sumps of the catch basins, and then cleaning out the pipes as that is necessary. And that goes up to the end of pipe where the pipe discharges into the basin. At that point, the responsibility is the maintenance for the riprap, the stone that is there at the pipe, removing woody vegetation from the basins, making sure that any sediment deposits are removed. If it's not draining correctly, figuring out why that is and removing the accumulated sediment. So what does maintenance include? There's two different types of maintenance that would be included in this post-construction agreement. You have structural control measures for the stormwater measures themselves, the basins and the swales. Then you also have non-structural, which is what we call housekeeping. So first, like I said, removing woody vegetation from basins or swales is very important so that so they're maintainable and the water can flow through them to get to the point where it needs to the basins where it will soak in or continue on its way. Checking pipe outfalls where the pipe enters the basin for erosion and fixing that. Sometimes that means trapping animals and removing them as burrows can create problems. Removing sediment, removing trash that might have accumulated there. Those are types of things that go in with the structural component. Non-structural, the housekeeping, what should be done on your own property, that comes up to how you maintain your vehicles on your site, cleaning up any oil that might have spilled if you are someone who likes to change your oil, not dumping things down the storm drain. Only rain should go down the storm drain. Disposing of oils and other fluids should be done in appropriate ways. When you mow, if grass clippings get on the street, which they typically do, having those swept up or removed from the street by blowing them off so that it's not being washed into our storm drains and causing problems with clogging or nutrient pollution. Stabilizing bare areas, as I said earlier, with seed and some type of mulch. Picking up after your pets if you have dogs and you take them on walks. Dog poop can generate bacteria that gets picked up by our stormwater runoff and create and can become a pollutant. Cleaning up any trash. Those are all types of good housekeeping things that are part of the post-construction plan and are explained in more detail. So how are these requirements typically met? How are these accomplished? Typically that's done through a homeowners association when it comes to a residential neighborhood. And Tom will be talking a little bit more about one option that is out there for people to consider. That brings me to what happens if the crossing fails to maintain the measures? What happens if property owners fail to maintain these measures? The city of Goshen has the right to enter property to make sure post-construction stormwater measures are functioning correctly. This is like when we would come out and do an inspection, we'd walk through the swales and through the basins to look at them. We'd look at the outfalls just to make sure that they're functioning correctly. The city of Goshen can take action to correct post-construction stormwater measures if they are not functioning as designed and creating problems. And then we can also assess the property owner or the homeowners association for the cost of those repairs. And with the project that we are going to be proposing tonight and describing to you, any of the work that we'd be doing on private property will be done after right of entry agreements have been obtained for that necessary work.
All right, thanks, Jason. So we've kind of covered how homeowners within a subdivision are all responsible for these stormwater measures. But we've also seen how the crossing neighborhood here, the stormwater measures are kind of in rough shape. And so next we're going to hear from some of the ways that the city is working with Avon-Marsh Consultants on a project to address some of these issues and do sort of a master drainage plan for the whole region sort of this area. Giving you all a clean slate so that you can take on these maintenance things once they are in a better place here. So I will turn it over, let's see, to Brad first here.
A lot of feedback.
Yeah.
Okay, while he figures that out, I'm happy to talk for just a few minutes. And you're welcome to share the screen, or you don't have to. If you guys can see me, I'm Becky Hutzel. I'm the redevelopment project manager for the city of Goshen. And I've been involved with this overall project area for several years. I'm sure that most of you that live in this area probably haven't lived there for the full time, or if you were, you weren't part of the planning process for this. The post-construction plan is a recorded document, so it is something that would have been in that massive pile of closing papers when you purchased your home. But I myself probably wouldn't have necessarily understood it. Our intention all along is to have the HOA established prior to people moving in. That way the rules and plans for management of these projects are planned for from the beginning. I'm sure we've thrown a lot at all of you guys tonight. I'm sure you're all sitting there, what are you doing? How are you gonna come, make us fix all this stuff? We realized that as this subdivision was developed, the original developer ended up losing the property to the bank. We've had additional developers step in, and so it hasn't been a seamless process. We also know that there's a lot of drainage issues within this area. We know that the soils don't allow for much to filter into the ground. So that makes it so that a lot of water has to be held and taken away through pipes. We also realize there's a lot of water coming into this neighborhood from the property to the south. We realize a lot of water flows through this property to the north. And so the city has an opportunity right now. We had previously established a TIF district, which is something established by a redevelopment commission in the area where Fairhaven and the birthing center are. It's called the Plymouth Avenue Professional Park. That TIF was a 15-year TIF and it has now expired. That TIF generated about $500,000 for the redevelopment commission. And our commission has agreed to put that funding towards coming up with an overall fix for this area. In addition, Dustin Saylor with engineering is willing to commit some stormwater funding as well. And so we have spent the last 2 years working with Avon-Marsh to design what this is going to look like, what we need to do to address the things that weren't done correctly the first time, and overall get the system to function as it should, in hopes that then the crossing neighborhood can take over and keep it functioning. Same as the doctor's office in their area, it's their responsibility to keep their areas working, and then the area to the south, they will have the same requirements. So we feel like we've come up with a good plan, and I believe as soon as Brad gets his sound working, he can explain some of that detail for you. Hopefully his sound is working. Are you there, Brad? I don't know if he's there.
He's calling in with his phone. Could you with him?
Okay. All right, guys. Well, let me see what I can do here. I think I can probably explain it, but I don't know if I have any tools.
We have it set up so that each section is enlarged. So we could go to the, starting with basin number 1.
That's on the south.
Yeah, it's on the south side. So Maddie, if you could go to the next slide.
All right, so this is a big close-up. Actually, if you want to zoom back out just a little bit more. There you go. So as you guys are looking at this, you'll see your neighborhood. So you'll see Lighthouse Lane coming off of Green Road, which is County Road 19. The area to the south of you guys, it's currently a field. I think there's a small barn type structure on the property. But I believe the long-term intent would be to develop something there. We have worked with the owner, which is MR Realty. And our intention is to capture all of the water that's coming from the south through swales and things of that nature into a substantial retention pond there. It's at the bottom left of the screen right now. I will say that north would be tipped, but it's going to capture into that pond. So from that pond, it's going to go north through a series of pipes, and then we're going to clean up the ponds that exist at the east edge of your property. We're going to connect those all with pipes. We're going to continue the pipe along the eastern property line to the north. The pipe will extend into Fairhaven's property, the professional park. It'll go all the way up to Plymouth Avenue, and it's going to connect into a pipe that will go under the roadway and eventually discharge into a pond at Black Squirrel. It's an existing drainage mechanism, and we're going to tie into that. In order to tie into it, we do have to control the flow. We can't just flood out the golf course. I don't think anyone would appreciate that. And so we are creating some large ponds. We're cleaning up some ponds. And on the crossing property, we may actually create a few additional small ponds just to hold the water while it's waiting for the opportunity to discharge through the pipe. As part of the project, we are looking at the southern property line for the crossing neighborhood. So these are the homes that are built between Lighthouse Lane and the property line on the south. As Jason had mentioned, there is a drainage easement there. The intention was always to have a swale there to capture the water and direct it away from your homes. Somewhere along the way, the idea came to create a berm that would block the view from the property to the south. And what happened was the berm was placed more at the north edge of the easement. And so the stormwater can't actually make it into a swale. And so we plan on working with the owners in that area to try to shift the berm south to the property line and recreate a swale that will so this now is looking north. So you'll see at the bottom right corner, the large pond, cleaning up some ponds, taking the water all the way to the north up to Green Road through a pond and discharging under the roadway. And then again at the southern boundary line for the crossing, we want to clean up that berm, clean up the swale. And what that'll do is it'll allow the water to drain away from the homes. I know that there's several properties out there with sump pumps that run frequently. So we're hoping to take away that need, which would be great. Justin, what am I missing? Can you think of anything I'm missing, Dustin?
No, I think you covered all the concepts of this pretty well.
Okay. So overall, that's a lot of work. And I guess we view this as a way to help the neighborhood. The stormwater system that was there was never constructed and fully functioning and accepted. And that's not any of the fault of any of the current owners. What we're looking to do is get you guys into a place where we can fully accept the infrastructure, make all the repairs so that things are in good shape when our project is done. And our hope is then that the neighborhood can work together to develop a plan for the long-term maintenance of all these features. I think what we've all learned from seeing how they are right now as they grow up is there's overgrowth. You know, if swales are filled in, if things of this nature, that's when you're going to run into the long-term problems. This is the city's chance to help the development out. It's a one-time thing when we have this funding from the TIF. At the end of the day, with all of the work that we're planning, this is easily $1 million project. We had estimated it out at the end of last year, and we were just under 800,000. But costs seem to be rising. We do feel it's an important project. We do intend to proceed with all of this work. And again, our hope is that once we get everything in a good position, then the neighborhood will be willing to work with us to maintain the post-construction stormwater management plan that's in place, that's recorded, that's associated with all of the deeds for the property, and that will continue into the future. So. Anything else, Dustin? Oh, Brad? No.
Audio.
Brad, I see that I think you tried to call in from your work phone, and I've allowed that one to talk. So I don't know if you're on that
Can
one.
you hear me, Tara?
I can hear you, Brad.
I think I've tried everything I could think of.
That's okay.
Becky-
This one's working and there's no feedback. So
I listened to Becky the whole time, so you did a great job. I do not have anything to add. I think she covered it nicely.
I will say that for the piping that goes along the eastern boundary line, we are going to have to clear a lot of the trees because having trees grow right next to a stormwater pipe is never a good plan. So we will instead have to install a fence for the buffer that's required adjacent to the residential. I feel like we've worked pretty hard to make sure that we're factoring all of the different components. Again, at the end of the day, we're just hoping this works for you guys. We're hoping that this adds value to your properties and makes living out in this area a benefit for all of you. And I think that's all I got, guys.
Brad, one thing you may want to add onto is the swale along that south property line. Becky touched on it slightly, but discussion about the mound and what that swale recreation would look like.
Sure, yeah. So the existing landscape mound that's along the south side of those lots, we're looking at shifting that landscape mound to the south, roughly about 15 feet, and that's going to help the city improve the rear yard drainage behind those lots and regrade that area so that it drains to the east into the drainage basins. So that's going to be a part of this project, and the city will be contacting those owners as this project gets closer.
I see it as a benefit as well. That berm kind of cuts your yards in half. And so by shifting it south 15 feet or so, having it sit on the property line, and then having it direct the water away, there should be more usable yard for each of the residential lots there.
That's a good point. And so when the new landscape mound is shifted to the south, so a new drainage swale will be created right at the bottom of the landscape mound to allow to intercept water and to allow it to drain to the east and not pond or puddle in the backyards.
All right, if we are through discussing that, looks like Jason has passed back over, so I'll get my screen shared here again. All right, and then Becky, do you mind talking a little bit about how you and Tom have worked together?
Yes, so the Barat Group has purchased, I believe, 5 or 6 of the lots at the southern eastern edge of this development. They also own the remaining land within the subdivision that hasn't been parceled out yet. And so their intention is to fully build this out. As they've continued forward, we've continued to talk with the property developers out there about the long-term need for this HOA. And the Barat Group, Tom DeMeester is the representative here tonight, has been working with us. Their group has worked with Yoder Ainley to develop an HOA for the lots that they own. And then they are also inviting others to join into their HOA. As many of you know, HOA, there's an annual fee, but then those fees can then go towards the long-term maintenance of the stormwater features. And I think Tom can introduce that concept and talk to you all a little bit about what their plan proposes. So Tom, take it away.
Thank you, Becky. Thank you for inviting me to attend a meeting. I am Tom DeMeester with the Barat Group out of Granger, Indiana. We are currently, like Becky said, the majority of the undeveloped land we do own, and then we do have on the south side of Lighthouse Lane, started at lot 24 where we built a house last year, and then we have 2 empty lots, and then we have a house going up right now currently, and then we'll have another lot on that side of it. We've been working in partnership with the city of Goshen and understand the importance of continuing on with developing an HOA, not just for the benefits of what has been discussed previously already tonight with the stormwater issues and the maintenance issues that the stormwater could potentially bring, but it also does a lot of things for you as a homeowner. Creates a stabilized property values, creates an avenue for possibly dispute settlements. Also, overall, it creates a community bond or a engagement of one another of the households there. So there are many factors and features and benefits to an HOA. One of the key things, though, why we are so feverishly working to complete this is because of the situation with the stormwater there and the post-construction stormwater requirements. As it sits now with no HOA, individuals could be charged a lot of money in reality to keep up with things maintenance-wise if there's a failure or water getting into your home because of a failure of a drainage easement. This HOA would be set up where the dues would go offset the maintenance costs of that. They're going to need to be cleaned, mowed, so on and so forth. As Jason touched on, there are common spaces too that the HOA fees would go towards. And I'll be honest with you, this has been not our simple HOA that we create, for the fact is that we've entered into a property where there is another developer involved with some lots there that they are developing on. And then we have the residents that are existing currently that have not paid into any HOA fees. And it's really hard to encourage someone all of a sudden to start paying more money for something that they've had free all along. But like the city has alluded to is that the stormwater system is failing. And if nothing is done about it, it is going to create issues to where failure could be catastrophic in some instances, or water making it into your homes. And that's where we're trying to avoid. So there, like I said, there are many benefits to this, and I'm open to any discussions. I know one of the first things that somebody's going to want to know is, what will the fees be? That is part of the things that we're working feverishly through, because as we're building new houses out there, we're looking at with HOA, you'll have covenants and such as, and you'll have things about fencing, restrictions about fencing, whether we can allow pools, not allow pools, if that pool is in ground, above ground, so on and so forth. So that's important also to gauge the existing houses there. So that has not been gone through lightly with us as a developer. While we're looking to protect our investment, we also want to protect your investment. So that is some of the benefits of joining the HOA.
All right, thanks, Tom.
Maddie, can I add one more thing?
Yeah.
So as I mentioned, when I described the city's project, we're going to invest $1 million, and we're planning to start that work this year. In the future, if the systems out there fail, my hope is it would never be to the extent where you had to invest the type of money that we have or that we're planning to. But if there were a $500,000 fix, and if no one was willing to step up and make that improvement, the city would be forced to go in per the terms of the post-construction management plan and make the repairs ourselves. And then we would turn around to the individual property owners and divide that up amongst the existing owners. And if they weren't paid, it could turn into a lien on a property or things of that nature. So I think that's a little bit of what Tom was saying too. We don't ever want to turn around and have to hand that fee back. Our hope is that we make the fix this time, we get everything functioning, and there can be a plan for maintenance long-term so that it never turns into that failure. So.
Becky, could I also add to the fact of that, and I think I'm correct when I say this, just because the easement or the swell may not connect to your property, as a property as a whole, they're still responsible for it because their water indirectly still flows to that easement, that basin, whatever the case may be. So I don't want anybody to have the thought process, well, it's not my problem because the swell's not in my backyard or the berm is not in my backyard. That's my neighbors across the street. Because ultimately it comes down to the whole neighborhood, because that neighborhood 100% totally drains into that stormwater system.
And that is correct. So when the subdivision was developed, there was a drainage plan established. And the post-construction stormwater management plan was developed based upon that approved drainage. All of the components to the drainage system work together, whether it be the swales, whether it be the piping beneath the roadway, with under the curbs, whether it be the retention ponds, it's all part of one greater system. And so that is absolutely correct. Just because the pond is maybe sitting on a common area, it's still the responsibility of everyone within that subdivision that has that recorded document attached to their deed.
All right, thanks all. I think it seems like we're ready for questions then. We're a few minutes early, so maybe that gives us even more time here. I just wanted to point out, I was going to mention this at the beginning, I forgot, all of the documents that we have referenced throughout this meeting are found on that the crossing drainage page. You should have seen that link in a number of the things that went out to you to communicate about this meeting. You can also find that website on the city's main page. There's kind of a scrolling banner. There's one you'll see is COVID, and then you can see this ongoing projects one. There's a lot of projects going on throughout the city this summer, and you guys are listed there as well. So you can find all of the documents that we've talked about, from a copy of the post-construction plan. There's a guidance document for understanding what those PCSMPs are, and copies of our ordinances, anything kind of related to this issue should be posted there. We'll also try and drop that direct link in the chat box if Kara could do that at some point here. And it looks like a number of questions have come in throughout the presentation, so maybe we'll start with those. And I think this first one was sort of early on, and I know both Dustin and Jason have been working with these kinds of issues for a while, so I think probably either one of you could tackle this one. But why did the city accept the development and impose these measures if they weren't going to be the ones to conduct maintenance? It seems like something that should be done by the city since we are in city limits.
Yeah, I think I'll take that. The city of Goshen is part of our development and working with developers. When the first development plan was put together and built out, the developer met the requirements for the sanitary sewer and the water system, and both of those systems were accepted through the Board of Public Works. And then we were still at the point of kind of final completion of the project. The developers still had some things going on with the stormwater system, specifically related to the stormwater basins. So we generally had an agreement with the developer at that time. And as that development went along, there was a period of time where we actually did not have the same agreement that we needed to proceed on, and we actually shut development of the lots down. We reached another agreement with the developer, and they were allowed to continue to proceed. And at that point, the developer basically folded their development plan up. And at that point, it was turned over to the bank, like Becky mentioned. We have been working with multiple developers throughout the years. But again, what the city, once a plan has been fully implemented and implemented properly, the city will take over the stormwater catch basins, inlets, and the pipe, but the city never takes over the stormwater basins. Historically, basins have been, as part of development plans, have been set up as on one property, and all of those basin responsibilities are at one property owners. And through the years and with the development of the post-construction plans, it's been identified that one person cannot maintain a stormwater basin. It has to be basically a neighborhood that takes care of a basin. The people that are contributing to that basin need to provide the maintenance on that. And that's really where we're at today. And that's for, you know, any subdivision that's from here on out. They are responsible for the basins and those drainage ways.
All right. The next question here could maybe be answered by a number of people, so I'll leave that to you all for who can tackle this one. Some confusion about two HOAs. So having the Barak Group's HOA would make it so that the crossing would have two HOAs. Is that correct?
I'll just step in. This is Becky. We did reach out to both to let them know that there is a need for an HOA. Ultimately, it would be easiest if all parties would work together to have one, but we can't require just one. I know that the Barak Group provided RC Holdings with a copy of theirs, and for whatever reason, RC Holdings has chosen to develop their own. The city has not seen a copy of it to confirm whether or not it meets all the requirements of the post-construction stormwater management plan, but our hope is that it does. At the end of the day, if they choose to establish a separate one, I mean, if there's two, it does complicate things, but at the end of the day, if the city has to come into the situation to remedy anything, we would just have to distribute the costs accordingly. For those that are part of an HOA and have funds set aside, it would be easier for them to provide the funding to cover the lots that are part of their group. But we don't have the ability to dictate whose is acceptable and whose is not. Again, we have seen a copy of the Barak Group's HOA, but we have not yet seen a copy of the other. So.
And Becky, can I add that it was very important for us to comply with the post-construction stormwater. As you recall, we had a quite lengthy meeting with the city and our attorneys and ourselves to make sure that we checked all the boxes, that we did address the needs, and that's what we felt we had accomplished. I don't know either how that would work with two HOAs. That's could be a very complicated situation to go through. So I'm not sure on that either.
Our next question here should be pretty easy. How soon will the drainage project begin? Do we have any estimates on that?
We are finalizing the design on the project now. We were delayed quite a bit waiting for some locates within the utility easement. That's now been completed. And so we have some additional pothole work to do just to confirm elevations. Once that's done and all the final easements are in place, we should be ready to bid the project. So our intention is that it would happen within the next few months. Once it's out to bid, we will notify all the neighborhood people just to keep everybody aware. It will be awarded by the Redevelopment Commission. And once we have a contractor on board, we will again make sure that we reach out to keep everyone informed. For the residents on the south side of Lighthouse Lane, we'll definitely be working with you as we proceed to improve the swale in the berm situation. Our hope is that it can be done yet this year. There's an awful lot of construction work happening though, so we're a bit at the mercy of the contractors. And so I guess we'll find out. So our hope is that it's done this year, that it'll start in the next few months and be done yet in 21.
So another question here, will the proposed HOA topics discussed in this meeting be provided to the residents of the crossing? I'm speaking in terms of benefits and fees. So I can tackle a portion of this question, which is that the draft HOA from Brock Group is posted on that page, the crossing drainage page on our city website. So there's a draft you can find there. Anything to add to that? How, I guess, will the HOA be communicated to residents who might be interested in joining?
I believe that there's a letter from Tom DeMeester on that website. Is that true, Maddie?
Yeah, that's on there too.
And so I would encourage anyone that's interested in learning more about it to reach out to Tom. And I don't think it is still in draft form. So I think there's still some room for input and feedback. And I'm sure Tom would work with anyone interested in talking more.
Do other subdivisions in the Goshen area have to maintain their own basins, or is this a special arrangement made with our particular subdivision?
Yeah, I can comment on that one. And so since the development of the post-construction plan requirement, and Jason, you can interject here, but I think we started that in, was it 07?
It was back, I think, the ordinance was passed in 2006.
2006. So I think in earnest, it started in 2007. So any development since then has had a post-construction management plan, which specifically ties each parcel to the management of the stormwater system.
All right, so yes, in short, yeah, the other subdivisions would have a similar situation.
Well, and I will note that Fairhaven development to the north, they're responsible for their pond. If you go to Westoria subdivision on the west side of Green Road, they have all their own series of ponds and features that they as a neighborhood maintain. And so, you know, for anything in this area, even Clover Trails, you know, the newer sections as they're developed, they have to maintain their own ponds. It is something that is across the board. It is absolutely not a requirement specific to this development.
I'll also add that having these post-construction agreements provides the benefit for those property owners where the basins reside. For subdivisions that were developed prior to this post-construction requirement, those, if a basin fails on a property in these older subdivisions, it is the property owner's responsibility to remedy that. I mean, there's no way for them to go back to other residents and say, hey, there's this expensive project that we need to do and get money from them. So this is a benefit to all property owners within these newer subdivisions.
So left, we have two kind of comments that I just want to read aloud because maybe others have comments or clarifications on these. One comment, this explains why my sump pump always runs often. No one could give me a straight answer prior. I'm all in. Anything from our panelists there? Okay. Our other comment here, the HOA was made into effect upon building on the property. So I think we maybe need to clarify something there.
And then Maddie, we have someone that has had their hand raised for a while, Mr. Ed Plug. So I will go ahead and allow him to talk so he can. Ed Plug, all you have to do is unmute. There you go. Hello, Ed. Can you hear us? Maybe his sound isn't working. Ed, if you have to, the Q&A section would be a great place then too if audio isn't working. Feel free to type out your question.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye out for that raised hand. Feel free to
Yep.
interrupt, Tara.
Yep.
So again, that other comment, the HOA was made into effect upon building on the property. So I think there might be some confusion because there was no HOA. Can someone tackle that kind of?
I would say this is what we need our city attorney, who's the expert in these, but he is not on, excuse me, the call tonight. The HOA is not something that is established by the city. So it's something that's established by the development group. GRC did not develop that plan. And once it went back to the bank and multiple parties purchased in on the lots that were remaining, again, it has not yet been developed. So there is no HOA in effect. The only thing that's recorded and established at this point is the post-construction stormwater management plan.
It looks like maybe there was a follow-up there, which you started to address, but a resident is saying that from their understanding, lots 1 through 23 currently have an HOA along with covenants. Are we aware of anything there?
I'm not aware of anything. We have never been provided with anything, nor is there anything recorded with these properties or available. If there is something, then it needs to be provided to the city so that we're aware.
Yeah.
My question to that would be if the anonymous attendee is on one of those lots from 1 through 23, they should have some documentation to support that. That would be great if they had that and could present that.
Then maybe one final question here, and we'll kind of see if anything else shows up or if we have any raised hands. But will the trees on the south of Lighthouse Lane be removed when the berm is moved or changed, and how will landscaping be affected?
So the short answer is yes. The trees will need to be removed when the berm is relocated. From inspection, it appears that some of the trees have survived and several of them have not. So as we relocate the berm to the south, the intention would be to eventually have them replaced. I don't know that it's been established what type of planting it will be. Now that there's owners living in the homes, maybe the trees will have a better chance of survival. I think part of the problem was there were not homes built when the trees were planted. And so if someone wasn't out there to make sure that they were watered and function, you know, they could survive. But we will work with those homeowners at the time to make sure that we take into consideration, you know, your thoughts on that and what you'd like to see moving forward.
All right, I'm not seeing any additional questions. Tara, have you seen any raised hands?
Yes, we do have 2. So I'm going to go ahead and allow Manny to talk. There you go, Manny. All you have to do is unmute.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I'm the homeowner on lot 1. I just bought the lot probably a month and a half ago. Start building, my foundation is in. We're gonna get ready to, keep building. I have 2 ugly, water, I don't know what you call them. I mean, it's not an actual retainage water pond or whatever it is, but I have one behind my house and one to, kind of on 19, right along the road there. How is that gonna be affecting my property? I mean, I'll be honest, I only have 16 foot of, backyard because of those, retaining water pond or whatever you call them, or whatever it is. I mean, to me, it's just water getting green with a bunch of weeds because, I mean, it's not doing anything to drain the water. To me, it's just water staying in there with, not moving at all, creating mosquitoes and creating all kinds of other animals, to live in there. How is this gonna affect me, as a new homeowner? I'll be honest with you, when I bought this property, I had no record. I talked to my realtor, and there's no record that is an HOA in my deed. So my question says, okay, did I need to join the HOA? How this is gonna affect me, especially lot 1, where I have 2 retention ponds, one in the back and one on the side of my property.
Maddie, can you turn the screen back to the one that shows the red and blue drainage paths?
Yeah, that might
So-
take me just a moment. But
You're fine. Manny, you are correct that there is no HOA. The long-term goal of an HOA would be to fix the ponds that are there along, County Road 19.
Okay.
They don't have those weeds. They are supposed to be there as a depression, an area for water to flow to when it rains and eventually drain away.
Absolutely.
What's happened is they're so overgrown and nothing
Yes.
can go anywhere. And then as you'll see on those blue arrows at the north end of your lot, the goal
Okay.
of swale in the backyard is to be just a depression where the water will flow to and then either flow west to that area on the left side of your house, or it'll flow up around the corner to the other pond.
Okay.
And so the goal is that each of the yards is to have that depressed swale, that small grass area where the water can flow through to connect to one of those 2 ponded areas.
Okay.
So it can drain. And so part of the problem, and one of the things that we've noticed, is that, as people build their houses, swales get removed. So then all of a sudden the water that goes to that spot in your backyard can't go anywhere. And that's part of the goal of the HOA, is to ensure that those blue areas are kept intact so that they can drain to the ponds that are maintained and that can drain away. And that is part of what it's there for. The HOA will ensure the maintenance of those features for aesthetic purposes for the HOA, as well as, long-term effectiveness of those features.
Okay. Yeah, and how this is gonna affect me, just for an example, the next 2-3 months, I'm planning to complete my home, finish whatever landscaping I can do around it. So when this construction starts, and start doing this, all this work around the property, how this is gonna affect my property and the damage created to my yard. Of course, it's gonna be excavators, there, it's gonna be skid loaders, whatever is gonna be there. How is that gonna affect my property, and how that is gonna be taken care of it and fixed? Or how much can I do, especially myself, that I'm just building it right now? How did I know? I mean, is this gonna be done when I'm still in the building completion process, or if this is gonna be something that after I'm done completely and put my, irrigation system in my jar, finish, and then boom, somebody's gonna come in and not destroy, I mean, do the work that they need to do to be able to, make it right,
I would say if you could work with us at the city, I would gladly talk to you at work or email or call. If you could show us your plot plan, the work that was done to set your house on the lot and show your different setbacks, we can
Okay.
compare that to subdivision documents that show the drainage areas and where they are. And it may be that the feature on the north end of your house doesn't need to be fixed. Maybe it's that it just can't make it to flow out of there. Maybe it's making sure that the connection into the one to the west is good. We can work with you to look at that more and figure out what the remedy needs to be.
Okay.
Those areas without seeing your plot plan for your site and comparing it to the subdivision. These aerial images are great, except for they're not always completely accurate and they don't have dimensions. We would be happy to work with you to look at that a bit more so you would have a better idea of what to expect.
Okay, that will be great, because I really, I just want to have a knowledge of, what am I doing right now and how much can I finish, how much can I do? Because right now, I'm planning in my plot plan, it shows like I'm having a patio on the backside of my property, and it's going to be close to the little retaining pond. I mean, it's going to be only like 2 or 3 feet away from it. So how is that going to affect me, eventually when they start the work, if that concrete is going to be in their way, I just don't know.
Yes, we will work with you to figure that out.
Okay, that will be good. Yeah.
And then Manny, to answer your question about timing, we still have to put this out to bid. And as Becky mentioned, the construction industry is very tight right now. We're going to have to work with the contractor as far as a start and completion date.
Okay.
And I realized as an oversight on the crossing page, we did not include all the contact information for all our panelists. So I'll make sure that gets up tomorrow for anyone on the panel that you would like to contact directly.
Okay, that will be great. Thank you very much.
All right. Tara, I don't know if Dallas has raised his hand. He says he can answer some stuff about the HOA, so maybe we.
Yep. He was next, so let me go ahead and let him. There we go.
All right.
Dallas?
Hey guys, can you hear me okay?
Yes, go
All
ahead,
right,
Dallas.
Okay. All right. Well, first I'd like to thank the city for taking care of the situation here and trying to help everybody move forward. So we do appreciate that. So I've lived out here since 2009, and I was not aware of document 35326, which is the post-construction stormwater management plan, until about a week ago. And to answer Manny's question about the homeowners association. So after we closed, Manny, we were approached by the city and the Brock Group to come together and try and come up with an HOA. And the fees were extremely high, $500 a year plus special assessments. And I'm speaking for most of the neighbors in lot 1 through 23, that is a very excessive fee. And most of us feel we cannot take that on. We feel it's the responsibility of the new developer to handle the cost of the stormwater infrastructure. And the city had said there needs to be an HOA. So I did go ahead and we got with RC Holdings and we submitted and recorded an HOA for lots 1 through 24 or 1 through 23, excuse me. Now, with that being said, what would be the process for the developer to change the stormwater agreement, post-construction stormwater management plan, where the developer would take care of those drainage areas from lot 1 over to lot 12 and lot 20 over to 17.
So Dallas, I had requested to review a copy of your HOA before it was finalized, and that was not provided.
Okay, well, I don't recall that situation, but you're welcome to look at it. It's a public record and I can email it to you.
Right. So I guess without having had a chance to review it, did you get the permissions of all of those lot owners?
Well, the majority of the lot owners, yes, and they all have copies of them.
Okay.
Can I add something to your comment, Dallas? This is Tom.
Sure.
The $500 was never a figure. That was a figure that I proposed to you for the vacant lots only, not anything to do with the existing homeowners. That was asking you for a contribution or for the development of those empty lots as a contribution towards the legal fees. That was for the remainder of the empty lots. That is not a clear representation for all the existing lots there.
Okay, well, that wasn't
That's
understood
what
in
the
the
email
email.
said to you.
Okay, well, I'd have to review that, and I disagree that the email said that. How much are you thinking it would be per year?
That was one of the questions I asked you. Was I wanted to get with you and review your thoughts as you are a representative of the other developer there and a member of the neighborhood. I figured you would have been a key person to work with because you would share the rights of the resident and also with the thought process of the other developer. That was my whole intentions all along.
Correct, but it said the one thing in the post-construction agreement, it says that the developer or a fully funded homeowners association can handle this. So I guess I'm wondering why you guys just can't take it on.
Why we can't take which on the responsibility and maintenance of it?
Yes.
Because sooner or later it'll be completely developed out and it would not be our responsibility anymore to maintain the easements. It is the responsibility of the residents to maintain the easements and
right. And typically the homeowner, a fully funded homeowners association would be put in place once 75% of the lots are developed. And this is not the case. We're not even a third of the way done yet.
The post-construction plan covers phase 1, the existing lots. It doesn't include the rest of the phases. The post-construction plan will be created for what the Brock Group is going to be creating and developing in the future. So the existing post-construction plan, when GRC was the developer, they were required to put an HOA in place. They did not. And then it went to the bank. It was purchased by 2 different developers. And so that's why we were trying to establish an HOA for the neighborhood, because that part was not completed by the original developer. So we were trying to get to that point where there is a fully funded HOA that can manage and maintain these post-construction.
Yeah, I understand that's what you're trying to do, but on the recorded document 35326, it says on page 6, the responsible party or a sufficiently funded homeowners association will da-da-da-da-da. So, that should just be the developer's responsibility until this thing is filled out.
But like Tom said, the developer will eventually be gone. And
right.
So the post-construction plan allows for an HOA to be developed so that the property owners have the proper funding to maintain the measures that are serving their property.
Correct, but $500 a year with special assessments.
That was never what the cost, that was never what the assessment was going to be.
And Dallas,
then why don't you give us a number?
I just revisited the email I sent you, Dallas, and it says what we're proposing is a cost of $500 per lot at 10 lots totaling $5,000. That was the amount of lots that you had that were not developed or a house wasn't currently on.
Okay, well, that was.
I made the other concessions too. The only concession that I did not agree to was the special assessment. That special assessment is there if there would be some sort of catastrophic failure and there would not be enough funding in the HOA going forward after we're done and gone out of the development there, and it's completely complete it, that would be there to protect the HOA if there would be a shortfall in funds. And that is not uncommon for any HOA to have that right to do a one-time assessment fee. Many HOAs that I work with have that in their clause, that if there would be a shortfall of money, or especially on a new HOA coming in where there are no dues collected and they may have quite a few expenditures, that assessment is there, and the assessment is historically used just to cover any unexpected costs that would arise. It's not there that all of a sudden just arbitrarily we decide, hey, we want to make an extra $5,000, but everybody's going to pay $250 extra. And our whole goal is to keep the dues low. What that looks like at this point, we're trying to establish that, because part of the agreement is with the city and the stormwater is, up until recently, until a few months ago, when the city has developed this plan with Aber Marsh, we weren't sure of what the basins were going to look like, or how much there was to upkeep there. So it's a work in progress. And again, that's what I reached out to you about, as a representation for both parties involved, that you would be a good representation of both the homeowners and of the development company.
Right. Well, I think the perception is just that, like you just mentioned, well, are you guys going to stick everybody with a large assessment? I think that's the perception of what's going on here.
Well, I guess I'm unclear on why that perception is out there. That's not anything that's been relayed from the city. That's not what was relayed in Barat Group's letter to the residents. We have never discussed that. What I can tell you is the city is getting ready to invest $1 million to make this better. And if this neighborhood can't figure out how to keep these areas nice, Lot 1, for example, Manny's house, is owned by RC Holdings, or it was. That was one of your lots, Dallas, with your development group. And
again, stop. That's not my development group. That is a guy, an investor who came in and bought the lots, and I'm just representing him as a Century 21 agent. I'm not part of any development group with RC Holdings.
Okay, but as the Century 21 representative, I mean, is it hard to sell a lot when the ponds behind and next to his house look terrible? You know, if these aren't going to be maintained, it's going to make all of the property values in this development go down.
Well, we have, there has been a time when we went out to clean those out and we were told not to touch them because of the cattails in there and they're protected. So what do you do about that?
I don't know who would have said that.
You turn one way and then you guys,
Dallas, I don't know who would have said that, but retention ponds are not considered a protected area or wetland. So yes, you are able to maintain those.
Okay. Well, that's why they haven't been cleaned the last couple of years, because they were chased off last time they were out there.
Yeah, that was
By the city.
did that. That was incorrect.
The reality is, I guess my point, to sum it all up, is if we were ever to have to come back in and spend another $1 million, it would be the city's responsibility to divide that up among the developed lots in the subdivision and come to each owner and request that you pay in your portion.
Yeah, I understand that. Not to interrupt, but I've checked the title work. When I closed on my home, this was not recorded on my title. I refinanced my home last year. It was not recorded on the title. I talked to the title company. They said, yeah, it is recorded in the subdivision. And if something like that were to happen, I could file a claim with the title company and they would reimburse it. So I guess my main question is the retention areas that you guys, and the drainage that you guys state that the owners are to maintain. What would be the process to where we can change the post stormwater construction agreement to where the developer maintains that? That's probably the only issue I have at this point. I think.
Yeah, the problem is the original developer is gone, and so the representative who you represent, RC Holdings, is one of the developers. And so it's only the remaining lots that are undeveloped, those property owners and the property owners that have built, they are the responsible parties at this time. And there's really not a transfer in place.
Dallas, may I ask, how does your HOA propose the upkeep of the retention areas? How is that spelled out in your HOA?
Yeah, that has its, we're to maintain those, but thinking about it, I would think the developer would typically take care of those at this stage of the game.
Well, the developer is not just Barak Group. The developer then is also the other remaining owners of those lots.
Well, he's not a developer. He's an investor. He didn't come in and develop it. I understand we're all in a mess here of a situation. So I would say you and I, Tom, can sit down and further the conversation and see if we can come together on an agreement where everything is, affordable for everybody out here.
And that was my intentions all along. And that was the purpose of me trying to engage in communication with you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I would suggest maybe a couple other representatives from the neighborhood be part of those conversations.
I
Just
agree.
to make sure that
Yeah.
everybody's voices are heard.
This is Manny again. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. And I really want to know, I never received any paperwork for an HOA, since I bought this property. So I need to know if it's one already been built from 1 to 23. I never get any
Okay.
notice.
Manny, not there. When I recorded it, I did give it to your realtor. Okay. So you can get with Mary and she can get it to you.
Well, I think it should be nice to get some notice and let the homeowners know, okay, what's going on. It's going to be a part of the HOA.
Right. I did notify Mary that we were discussing it. And that we were, looked like most of the neighbors had wanted to do it because we weren't sure what was going on with this whole situation. And we were just trying to be forward thinking and protect ourselves. So it was given to Mary.
All right, I will talk to her.
Yeah, I would appreciate if you could send me, this is Becky with the city, a copy of that as requested. I think if you go back to my last email, I requested a copy of it before it was recorded, just so that we can confirm that it complies with the post-construction stormwater management plan.
Okay.
And to any of you that were part of that, that now have that recorded, I'm sorry if this becomes another hassle now for you, now that there's one recorded that we were not aware of. The city is by no means trying to make this complicated for anyone. We're truly trying to fix the issues and ensure that the properties and the values of your properties, hold for years to come, and that this turns into a really great development. So to any of you, our contact information will be up on the website. Please feel free to reach out. If you have additional questions after our call tonight, we are always available by email and phone calls. And we definitely want to work with you guys to make these improvements and make them well.
All right, thanks, Becky. That seems like maybe a good ending point. We're a little over what we had promised here at the beginning. So with that, yeah, as Becky was saying, we'll continue to be in communication as these things develop. We'll keep updating that webpage. So please be checking back there, and we'll do communication within the neighborhood too as we have developments. All right. Tara, I think we can go ahead and end our meeting here. Thanks all for coming tonight.
Did you see the last question that was posted? Did you want to answer that? It says, this all seems rather excessive. Why would property owners be on the hook for distribution fees for what the city does to correct the stormwater? The rest, it looks like we've pretty much covered. So I guess with that being the last one.
I'll comment on that real quick. I would encourage someone that has that question, they really should go back and look at the post-construction plan as mentioned, that's been placed on the city's website. So take a look at that, but that is a development responsibility. It was originally implemented by the federal government, the states then implemented it, and then it had to be implemented locally. So this really is a nationwide thing with regard to post-construction. And they're taking it away from a global issue and really making it a hometown neighborhood issue. And that is we currently live in, the state that we currently live in is stormwater is an issue for everyone, and we all need to be conscious of that and figure out the best way to manage it together.
Can I add just one thing to what Dustin's saying, and for anybody that's listening? The city is stepping forward and putting $1 million into this infrastructure. They're not asking for any of that money to make the corrections. They're giving this property a clean slate. Us as a developer and developing an HOA is to maintain that clean slate going forward. This has nothing to do with what wasn't done or what should have been done or what could have been done. They are stepping forward to make the repairs to correct any, head off any problems that may occur. The simple process of the HOA is to maintain that so no future problems come up, so the city doesn't have to step back in where they'll pass that fee on to somebody else if that does occur.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks all. All right.